This week's Torah portion is called Vayakhel. And if you remember last week, after the whole debacle of the Jewish people worshipping the golden calf, Moses comes down with the new tablets, with the newly learned, newly integrated Torah that he's going to bring to the Jewish people. This week's Torah portion, Vayakhel, he gathers all the people together. Everybody's gathered together. And Moses is telling them what they need to know to live in relationship to God. The first thing he tells them is to observe the Shabbat, that the Shabbat is a bubble in time where godliness infuses the world. On 6 days, God created the world, and on the seventh day, he infused the physical world that he created with spirituality, with holiness. And that day is a day that we also rest on. We also stop our creative modes of expression in the world, and we just live in relationship to God, within relationship to each other, into relationship to the spiritual and physical aspects of who we are. And we bear testimony to the fact that God created the world in 6 days and rested on the seventh. That's the job of the Jewish people, to observe the Shabbat, to be a testimony to the world that God created the world in 6 days and rested on the seventh. So too we do that as a testimony to God as the creator. The next thing that Moses tells the people is how to build the Mishkan, how to build the tabernacle. And he asks the people to contribute their resources, to bring their money, to bring their gold, to bring their silver, to bring their jewels, to bring the animal hides, to bring all of those things. And Betzalel is this 13-year-old boy, says our Jewish tradition. He's 13 years old, and he is the major artisan. He's the one who's going to pull everything together and make it into the Mishkan that God has directed Moses how to build. So we have God as the composer, we have Moses as the musical director, and we have Betzalel as the conductor. And the Mishkan that's being built is the symphony. So Betzalel is tasked with bringing it all together, being the major artisan. He's going to learn, he's going to know, because God infuses him with knowledge and with insight and with wisdom, that Betzalel is gifted all of the attributes needed so that he knows how to bring all these materials together and build the Mishkan. It's a gift. This wisdom, knowledge, and insight is a gift given to Betzalel. Betzalel means in the shadow of God, that he is infused with godly wisdom that he uses to build this structure such that the divine presence can rest in the world. That by using these physical materials, we're bringing godliness into the world, because he's doing it, Betzalel is doing it exactly the way God has directed. So we, all of us, all people are created B'Tselem Elokim, in the image of God. But B'Tselem Elokim means in the image of God, and we're created that way. And one way to understand that is that we're like Betzalel. We're in the shadow of God. We are infused, like Betzalel, with wisdom and with knowledge and with insights and with a skill set. And that skill set can be used to bring godliness into the world, just like Betzalel built the Mishkan to bring godliness into the world. So too, we have a skill set. We have wisdom and knowledge and insights and all our talents and all of our energies that are given to us to bring godliness into the world. So when we do good, when we're kind to each other, when we light the Shabbat candles, when we do acts of kindness, when we do mitzvot, when we do what God tells us to do and how to live in this world, when we're just and we're kind and compassionate, and we feed the hungry and we feed our families and we do our laundries because we're clothing the naked, etc., etc., when we do regular everyday things with an intention that we're bringing godliness into the world, that's what we're doing. We're like Betzalel in our everyday lives. And it doesn't have to be big things. It can be opening the door from someone. It can be smiling at someone. It can be making a phone call to somebody who's lonely. And it can be making a meal for someone who needs it. We're doing everyday things, but we're infusing our actions and our physicality with spirituality, with holiness, with godliness. That's what we're doing, just like Betzalel is showing us in this week's Parsha. So Betzalel, it tells us, is the son of Uri. He's the grandson of Hur, and he's the great-grandson of Miriam, the sister of Aaron and Moses. And those two, Hur and Miriam, were people who stood up for what was right. We learn about Miriam standing up to her parents. Her parents had decided, because of the decrees of Pharaoh, because of throwing baby boys into the river, that they were not going to have any more children. And Miriam stands up to them and says, you can't do that. If you do that, there'll be no Jewish people. You have to keep going. You have to come back together. There has to be procreation so that the Jewish people continue. It seems like an impossible task, but Miriam stands up to her parents and says, get back together, which they do. And as we know, Moses is born from them, and he's the redeemer of the Jewish people. And so what Miriam did is she stood up to something that seemed impossible. She also continues to birth the babies. She's one of the midwives who continues to birth babies. She's continuing to do something that seems like a crazy thing to do in the world that they were living in, but it's the right thing to do, and it's important to do, because you never know what's going to be in the future. And don't live with hope, and live with optimism, and live with a belief that there's can be a different future than the one that seems like it's going to happen. So that's Miriam, for instance. Hur has a couple of examples where he also stands up for what's right. When the Jewish people come through the Red Sea, they're attacked from behind by the evil Amalekites. Moses goes up on a hill, and he holds his hands up. And Hur is one of the people who helps hold Moses' hands up. When Moses' hands are raised, the Jewish people are able to fight and beat and prevail over the Amalekites. So Hur is there holding up the hands of Moses, saying, we can do this. We have got this. We've got God on our side, and we can stand up for what seems like an impossible battle. Hur is also the one in last week's Parsha, when the Jewish people are coming together to build this calf, and they're scared that Moses isn't coming back down the mountain, and they build this golden calf, that Hur stands up to them and says, no, don't do it. It's the wrong thing to do. You should not do this. And he stands up against what the people are planning and plotting and doing, and he stands up. We learn that he dies, they kill him, but he's one who stood up for it. And these two ancestors of Hur, his grandfather Hur, Betzalel, his grandfather Hur, and his great-grandmother Miriam are people who stood up against all odds. They are people who put one step forward and said, I might not be here to complete the job, but I still have a responsibility to stand up and to do and to speak out for what's good and what's right. And they do that. And Betzalel is also one who does that. He's 13 years old. He's imbued with wisdom and insights, and he's imbued with all of the skill sets that he needs to build the Mishkan. It seems like an impossible task to build a house for God in our midst. How is it possible? But he tries. He's given the wisdom, and he works towards it, and he makes it happen. And all the people contribute. Moses says, contribute, bring all of your resources, bring your gold and your silver and all of these things, and we'll use it to build the Mishkan. It's a national project. Everybody's involved. Something we're doing together as a Jewish people, bringing godliness into the world. So too today, like Betzalel, like the Jewish people who are assembled after the debacle of the golden calf, after Moses comes down with the second tablets of stone and says to the people, gather your resources, bring your resources, let's build a structure in our midst, in our hearts for God to exist. Bring all your resources, bring your skill sets, bring your talents, your wisdom, your knowledge, your everything, bring all of that and build godliness in the world. And that's what we're doing. We're also doing that. We're doing that in our everyday lives. We're doing it with the big things. We're doing it with the little things. We are intentionally using our resources, using our skill set, using our bodies, using our words, using what we have to bring godliness into the world. One final thought. There's a custom, maybe it's not a custom, there's a Jewish law to wash your hands in the morning. So one of the reasons given why we wash our hands in the morning is because while we sleep, we have on a 1/60th level, we have died. Our soul has left its body. It's come back. God gave us back our lives, and we wash our hands to wash that little bit of death that's on the ends of our fingers. That's one reason given why we wash our hands. I heard something this week that I really loved. Another reason why we wash our hands in the morning is because we're given life. Here's our morning. We're ready to go, and we wash our hands so that when we go through our day and when we act in ways that bring God into the world, we're doing divine service. So our divine service that we do throughout the day needs to have our hands clean. So we wash our hands in preparation for a day of bringing spirituality and holiness and godliness into the world. And I bless us that we are cognizant of it, that we're aware of the opportunities that we have every day to use what we have, whether it's material, whether it's physical, whether it's our knowledge, whatever it is that we are blessed with, that we use those tools to partner with God to bring more holiness, more spirituality, and more divinity into our midst.